Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're back with another Neurodiversity Stories. My name is Darren Clark. I'm a neurodiversity consultant, coach, and marketeer. We have another absolutely phenomenal guest, great friend of mine, Michelle Catterson, who is going to be talking about her role within being the head at Moonhall School. She is an absolute phenomenal dyslexia advocate and the incredible work that she does. And I can't wait to have her as a guest on our show today. As always, if you could just let us know where you're tuning in from. We are reaching several companies. We're reaching loads of companies, but we're also reaching lots of different countries as well. So please do let us know in the comments below where you're tuning in from. And we will be discussing today loads of things with Michelle. We'll be talking about the GCSE reform, how the education system is stacked up against SEN, how does this impact the learners, how having students having to resit exams at 18 there. And we also, if we have time, which is a real great subject, is to talk about AI as well. So I would implore you to sit back and enjoy this session. If you do have any questions, and please do drop them into the chat as well. Also, I'd like to say we can't do this without yourself viewing and commenting, but also our fantastic sponsors, IDL, International Dyslexia Learning. They have been an incredible support for this, and I again implore you to have a check out of their fantastic products and services. Here's a little video to just check to tell you exactly who they are and what they do.
International Dyslexia Learning Solutions, IDLS, provides specialist multi-sensory software programs to schools around the world. Our main goal is to provide learning support to those with dyslexia and dyscalculia, or those who need a little extra help, and our software is used by thousands of children across the globe. At some point, you may have thought, can I make a real positive difference to a student's English and math skills in the limited time I have with them? We know the answer is usually yes, but the challenge is how. The IDL platform has been designed to satisfy this challenge with proven results and a simple interface that allows you to automate lesson plans and see student progress at the touch of a button. This is why IDL is trusted by thousands of educators around the world.
So a massive thank you to IDL for sponsoring Neurodiversity Stories, and please do check them out. All their information will be all linked to everything that we put out via the YouTube podcast and on this as well. So now I'd like to talk about Michelle Catterson and Moonhall School. And so Michelle Catterson, she's been the head teacher of Moonhall School for the last 5 years. Under her leadership, the school numbers have grown to the capacity, and the school's received a number of national awards for pupil, personal development, and best special provision. And as we say, you know, how important education is. And I had the honor of going to, with my partner, going to Moonhall School, speaking to the students, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I'd like to share with you to really give you kind of an insight of what, how important it is for a child to have the education, but how the students do feel in Moonhall School. So I want to share you this little video just to get before we bring Michelle on. So please do check out Moonhall School.
Oh, there's like so much to like. It's like actually so brilliant here, like staff always caring about you and actually making you believe you're good at something. That's what I love about Moonhall.
Everything with Moonhall is lovely. Teaching, my friends, the classes, everything.
What I like about Moonhall is the teaching, because it's very supportive, and the friends that I have here, because they're all dyslexic and it's really easy to connect.
I like the fact that the teachers are really supportive and never hasten to help you in any situation.
They help me learn in different ways, and they give me easier ways to learn.
I like that with Moonhall, it doesn't matter what type of person you are. If you're kind, you're going to find friends. And the teaching is so much more supportive.
It goes in the right speed for me, and it's more time for me to concentrate.
I like Buzz and the teachers at Moonhall School.
They focus on you because you've got quite a small class, so they can, if you're really struggling, they can just focus on you.
It's helped me, especially with my reading, because before I came here I was on a book called Toe by Toe, which was just doing syllables at a time, and now I can read pages and pages without thinking, oh, what does that word say?
Coming to Moon Hall, it's been a lot more inclusive and helped me a lot more to achieve what I want to achieve.
It's helped me in a lot of ways, but definitely my confidence.
I love that it's a small school, you have good friends, we're really like a family, the teachers get along.
But I feel like almost like a changed person.
I like that there's a lot of friendship, and if anything happens, the teachers will always sort us out.
Other schools, they don't really understand what they're supposed to do, and this school understands.
The activities, you have lots of activities you can do that are great, and like hockey, netball, cooking club, there's lots of things you can do. There's sports, there's everything really.
The fun things at Moon Hall are that you don't have to be different to have friends here. You can always express yourself as you are and still make loads of friends, and everyone's really supportive of who you are and what you want to be in life, and yeah, it's just amazing here.
You got freedom to learn, and like you got a really big white space.
So guys, that's only a snippet of Moon Hall School, and we are going to be bringing on Michelle to tell us about her role at Moon Hall School, the incredible work that she's doing for the community, also the work that she's been doing in the Parliament side of it, and the British Dyslexia Association. So without further ado, I welcome Michelle. Michelle Catterson, a massive welcome, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on Neurodiversity Stories. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so glad that there was a little video after the school video so that I could compose myself, because every single time I watch that, I get really emotional listening to the kids.
I was just going to say, how does it feel? You know, not only you're educating children, but changing people's lives in that sense. I mean, that video, obviously it was shot a little bit of time ago, but I guess it still resonates with you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cliche to say it, I know, but it is transformational coming to a school like Moon Hall. Many of my pupils have had a really negative experience of school before they come to a school like Moon Hall. They've been misunderstood, they've been the naughty kid in the class, they've been made to feel stupid, their words, not ours. And the impact that has, not just on that child, on their self-confidence, their well-being, but in the whole family. I hear very often of children that have been school refusers. I had one pupil a couple of years ago that their attendance at school was 20%. Here it was 95%. They just didn't want to go to school. And that's so tough. As a parent myself, when you've got a kid at home crying and saying that they don't want to go, what do you do? Force them to go into somewhere that you know is not going to be a positive experience for them, but you feel like they should go to school and it's the right thing to do. It's tough. It's really tough.
It is. It's a massive balancing act. You know, emotional. You know, in every sense. Michelle, can I just bring you back? I obviously did a little introduction to yourself. Could you tell the viewers just a little bit about yourself? And like I know I mentioned that you're part of the British Dyslexia Association and the All-Party Parliament. Could you just tell us a little bit for people that don't know you or not connected with?
Yeah, no problem. So obviously, originally from Scotland, if you've not picked up the accent already, I have been a teacher for over 20 years. And since I was a teacher, I have always had an interest and a passion for working with children with learning difficulties, those children that didn't really sort of fit into the school model or the sort of round peg wooden hole kind of square hole type thing. Yeah. And I think, I've just always wanted to try and help. So that's been my passion. That's been my driver. I've taught in a mixture of state schools, independent schools, very affluent state schools, really deprived area, state schools and prep schools, senior schools, a real mixture. But the one thing that's been consistent through all of those is working with the kids with special educational needs. And then I arrived at Moonhall, which is a school full of kids with special educational needs. So in order to get a place at Moonhall as part of our admissions criteria, you have to have a dyslexia diagnosis. So I am surrounded by wonderful, creative, hardworking, amazing dyslexic pupils. And even at my school, I have some ex-pupils that are now employed as staff, which is amazing. And yeah, that's really my sort of day job, if you like. And then running alongside that, I've been a school governor before, and most recently I am chair of the board at the British Dyslexia Association. Before I was appointed as chair, I was a trustee at the British Dyslexia Association, and I headed up the education committee. So yeah, really, I think the work that I do with the BDA is my sort of personal goal and ambition for that is to try and sort of reach a little bit further than just Moonhall. I think everybody would appreciate and recognise that the kids that come to Moonhall are the lucky ones. Those are the ones whose needs are met, they're finally understood, they're in an environment that's suited to their needs. But sadly, unfortunately, that's not the case in every school, in every part of the country. There are still many, many children that are misunderstood, that don't have their needs met. And it's not the fault of the teachers, it's not the fault of the school. I'm placing no blame, it's just the situation we're in. So yeah, I feel like that work that I do with the BDA, the work that I do up in Parliament as part of the parliamentary groups, sort of lobbying, trying to get MPs to recognise that things aren't as good as they could be, is that's my passion, really. Moonhall's amazing, love it. It's part of my passion, but it's really for every child I'm trying to help the solution.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for not only the work that you do, but I think it's just, I guess. The great thing is you're thinking, kind of sort of outside in the bigger kind of scale of this, of how can we impact more people, how can we help more people? And I guess, we do talk about, politicians but the politics side of it, and ultimately taking something to them and getting, the decision made on those can really kind of help further the bigger global plans that we have. How have you found that kind of that kind of process, kind of having kind of an idea and then going through it, would you say it's quite a long thought out process that has to be, go through so many different levels before something gets heard or taken to the top?
Yeah, well, the Jim Rose report was written in 2009, and one of the recommendations in that to ministers was to have a specialist teacher in every school. That's not a hard task to achieve, but we're nowhere near that target. There are so many schools that teachers are just doing their absolute best to try and understand the needs of their kids, but without the right support, without the right expertise behind them. I think it's a very convoluted, long process to get any sort of change passed through Parliament. Unfortunately, I think MPs, and I've met with quite a number of them, my local MP and other MPs that are involved with the British Dyslexia Association, and they're listening, they're willing, but it really requires boldness for that next step to look at actual education reform and what we're going to do. We had the SEN Green Paper, which had some good recommendations. That the draft was published this year, but when we talk about politics, there's a lot of talk about maybe a change in government next year. So does that mean that the new government potentially is going to take forward all of those recommendations and changes? Probably not. So all that work that's done with one government, with one director of education, one minister, there's just that sort of lacking consistency. And let's be honest, we've had a number of education ministers over the year. There's quite high changeover with those ministers, and that's not great. And sadly, a lot of the ministers that we have in cabinet are not experts in their field. They're not teachers. They're not specialists. And I think they do a good job in some circumstances, but they need to understand what it's like on the ground, what it's like in a classroom every single day of the week for those children that struggle, and for the teachers trying their best to educate them.
I couldn't agree more, and you're absolutely right, and it is that when we do see from a political side of it, when they change, whether it's a certain party gets in and that changes and people changes, it is that process. It's like, oh my goodness, we've worked for, say, many years to bring this up, and then they come in and they go, actually, because ultimately anyone coming into a new role has, I don't say use the word their own agenda, but they have their own things that they believe in, what they want to do, and they have to kind of deal with the stuff that was going on before. But it is for us as individuals to go in and try and create that movement, so to speak. It can be, a very quite a soul destroying thing when you've worked many years to bring it to a head.
Yeah, and ultimately it'll come down to finances and funds and what's available, and there's never enough money, and there's definitely not enough money dedicated towards SEN, sadly, because I think if there was a bigger focus on SEN and meeting the needs of these children in the classroom at an early stage, so that there was early intervention, we wouldn't necessarily have the sort of long-term issues that we have with mental health issues, or prison systems where there's high percentages of people who have literacy and numeracy difficulties. So the impact on society when we don't invest in those early stages is huge. So it's backwards to me, unfortunately, but maybe one day I'll get myself into cabinet and I'll actually
just think what's the next stage.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe one day.
So can I just bring you back to, so when we talk about the educational system, and we mentioned SEN as well, how do you feel that the education system, is it stacked up against SEN? Is it a system that makes it very difficult for teachers and for students as well? What's your thoughts on that, Misha?
So if I had my way, if I was Prime Minister for the day, if I was I'm Prime Minister today, I would scrap GCSEs straight away. GCSEs are not fit for purpose for the majority of learners, and especially for those with SEN. If we look at the way that GCSEs are set up at the moment, it's a 2-year course ordinarily, and it's a memory test at the end of the 2 years. They've removed most elements of coursework from the majority of GCSEs. So really what the GCSE is assessing is how well somebody can recall what they've been taught. It doesn't assess application of knowledge, problem-solving skills, creativity, all of the skills that are necessary for the workplace, that employers look for. So there have been some schools recently, really brave, bold schools, Latimer Upper School, Bedales, who've literally said, we're not doing GCSEs anymore. They're just going to focus on their sort of getting the kids to A level. And I really applaud them for that, for taking that step and taking control of the situation themselves. We're sadly, we stop at 16. So we have to get the children some form of qualification by the time that they leave here so that they can go on to their next steps. But one of our plans is to hopefully have a sixth form provision. And when we do have that sixth form provision, I really will be looking at what we are providing at GCSE level, because I think a lot of the rationale for those schools that are getting rid of them is GCSEs take up a lot of time in the exam series. So you spend about 6 weeks of various exams, and then they finish mid-June as well, the pupils. If you had an extra 2 months of teaching time, imagine what you could achieve in that time and get the kids working towards for their next steps. So yeah, for me, definitely get rid of GCSEs. They're not an accurate reflection of what the kids are capable of. And especially this year, they increased the grade boundaries. I mean, come on, like these kids have had a tough time. And I know we're post-COVID and we can't keep going on about the impact of COVID, but these kids were taught at home for a period of time. Most of my kids came into school here because they had an EHCP, an educational healthcare plan, so they were allowed to come into school. And basically I let anybody come in that wanted to come in and would benefit from coming in school anyway. But they still didn't have the regular setup. They didn't have their regular teacher. They didn't have that consistency. So they're still impacted. And I feel it is so unfair. I have some of the brightest kids I've ever met at my school, but if I sit them down with a piece of paper and put them through the traditional exam system, they can't demonstrate how clever they are. And that's what's really heartbreaking, really soul destroying for me as a head teacher, funneling the pupils through this system that I know is not great for them.
You're absolutely right. I just want to share. Someone's also has put please do. If the profile's not give us your name, so if you feel free to share your name or not. But thank you so much for sharing. So the educational system isn't fit for purpose for SEN kids. It's a memory test. It always has been. That kind of came up just as you were saying that. So obviously there's lots of other people out there that that believe that that's the same. And I think about, for me, having dyslexia and ADHD, and for my memory side of it, my short-term memory, sometimes my long-term memory, I don't know if that's age or not, but genuinely, I think to myself, if I was tested on something now where I had to kind of remember and then, relay that side of it, it wouldn't be a true reflection, I hope, on my educational side of it, or what I could develop and that side of it. So does seem very one-sided.
It's really like, it'll take time, it would take money, but I feel it's important. And I think I still teach. I teach science, and I've introduced a BTEC this year, which is actually slightly different to a GCSE, although it's equivalent to a GCSE, but it has regular coursework. So you teach something, assess it, move on, teach something, assess it, move on. Yeah. So it's much better suited to children with SEN. And I think as a biologist, as a scientist, if I would far rather sit down and say to my pupils, right, here's a complex issue, what would you do about it? How would you go about testing for this? What apparatus would you need? What sort of things would you need to do? And ask them to sort of talk to me about what they would do. I'd get an amazing answer from them. Sit them down with a bit of paper, even with a reader and scribe. It's just not going to get the best response from them. And that's what's really difficult for me as someone in education, is we are not getting the best out of our SEN kids by measuring them on a system that doesn't suit them.
How do you think that impacts the students from having that, going through the process of the learning side of it, then sitting the GCSEs, then getting the results that, again, doesn't necessarily reflect in any way, shape or form their capabilities? How do you feel that impacts them, going on to the next stage of their lives?
Oh, it's completely demoralising for them. They know that they're capable of more, but then they get this bit of paper that has a grade on it that they know themselves, and we know as teachers isn't truly reflective. And I think when you think about a typical dyslexic learner, they're tenacious, they're resilient, because they have to be, because they find things difficult. So they've got to keep getting up, doing things again, finding a different way to do things. And it's just absolutely no surprise to me that when we look at 40% of self-made millionaires in the UK are dyslexic. And the skills that comes along with being an entrepreneur, tenacity, resilience, creativity, just suits dyslexics down to a T. So there's real positivity there. There's real hope there for our pupils, but they're part of a system that they have no control over, we have no control over, and the measures just don't reflect things. I have no doubt whatsoever that every single one of my pupils that leaves Moon Hall will be successful in whatever they decide to do. And in some ways, GCSEs aren't significant. They don't define them. They're not going to sort of put them into this little box and say, this is all you're capable of. But tell that to a 16-year-old kid that listens to other people, maybe at Moon Hall, maybe at other schools, talking about the grade 8s and 9s that they got and how many GCSEs they got and what university they're going to go to. You're hearing that message repeatedly again and again and again. So for a child in a classroom, it's tough. And we just try and build them up, help them focus on the things that they're really good at, their strengths, build their confidence. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
You're absolutely right, and you mentioned the word resilience, and that's something that I can relate to. My own personal journey is I don't know if it's always you kind of not predict the worst in certain things, but I always kind of forward think that, am I able to deliver that task? It could be the most, mundane thing, or it could be, the most, elaborate thing. So I'm always, I guess, second guessing of a different route round. We say we A to B, and I'm always going, okay, we'll do this, to get to that. But it is, with that resilience, that it does cause some anxiety, I can imagine, with the students as well, and exhaustion. And we have to be careful as well that people don't burn out, because we are at a stage where we're continuously, our brains are continuously overthinking things, and we're trying to do this. And I guess if you're then the reward, I guess, we love to be rewarded for things, whether it's a praise, whether it's a qualification, whether it's whatever it is. And I just think to myself, when we have those situations, if we take the exams, for instance, and the results, and they get the BBC or other television stations, and they go to a school and they do the opening of the envelope and stuff. And I actually feel quite anxious when I'm doing this. And I don't know if obviously the students put themselves forward for this, but it's that situation, isn't it? It's a lot of build up of how are they going to do well at the exams, and maybe it's peer pressure, parent pressure, whatever it is, and the pressure they put on themselves. I'm just trying to think. It's those situations at such a young age can be really quite stressful for the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's probably no surprise that children with SEN are at a higher risk of self-harm. They're at a higher risk of developing eating disorders. They're at a higher risk of having mental health issues as teenagers and as they go into adulthood. And I think there's only so much resilience an individual can have.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly feeling like you're sort of trudging through treacle almost, it's understandable why people find that tough, and maybe the resilience drops and they want to give up a little bit. But I think when it comes to GCSEs, yes, there is a sort of responsibility on ministers and government and those that can legislate for change to be involved, but also there's a bit of responsibility on employers and companies. Like, if you're recruiting, do you need to know what someone's GCSE results are? If there's an application form that has a section there for GCSE results? No, you don't. You don't. And Richard Branson, famous dyslexic, actually spoke of the fact that if you're looking for a job at Virgin, he no longer asks for GCSE results on any application forms. And I think that's really, really important. What if a kid is even not dyslexic or doesn't have SEN, but they just have a bad day on their exam, or maybe even there's been a bereavement in the family or something like that? Why should that one day, that one moment in time, define their possibilities as they move on through their next steps?
It's remarkable, isn't it? And I think it's absolutely wonderful that Virgin, Richard Branson has made that step, because I think to myself now at the age of 46, if I was applying for a job now, I would still have to give what my GCSEs were or what my exams were So I guess we have this period of time where the work that we did within the school carries with us, and impacts someone's decision on, what did they do in the educational side of it. So I do feel you're absolutely right that in a workplace environment, these things have to, change. And I guess we then have to think about a lot of different things that are happening in the workplace. There's some incredible companies out there doing some phenomenal things for this. But when we look at the recruitment process, even from the early, the application process of getting in, or the job ad that's going out, how does that process work? So it's almost, I guess the perfect scenario would be if someone had support through primary school if this was in the UK, primary school, secondary school, college, or sixth form, college, university, then workplace. That would kind of help. But I think in your experience, I know we talk about the educational side of it, but if you've probably spoken to people in the workplace, have you seen that element of the workplace still having that kind of unfriendly process, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So individuals who've maybe been asked to present but not been given enough information in advance, not been given notes and details and different things, and even sort of relating to the workplace when my pupils leave Moon Hall. I had a pupil a couple of years ago who applied for an apprenticeship, and the first step in the interview process was a psychometric test. That was timed. He never got through to the next stages, but he went for another apprenticeship the next day and secured that apprenticeship out of nearly 500 candidates. He got the job because of the way that company did its recruitment. So I think employers need to look at those reasonable adjustments. They need to see what they can do to help their neurodiverse members of staff, and I think what measures can they put in place to help get the best out of them? Because by employing a neurodiverse member of staff, yes, okay, you might need to make some adjustments. Like, I've got neurodiverse members of staff here, so it's making sure that maybe I have a conversation with them rather than just sending an email, making sure that they've got software and dictation software and different whatever they need in order to be able to do their job well. And okay, it takes a bit more time and responsibility from me as the employer, but I get the most amazing member of staff. I get someone that's really dedicated, that's really creative, that thinks a little bit differently, brings added value to the table in our meetings. And I think that's what employers really need to look at. That yes, okay, you might have to make these accommodations and these adjustments, but look at the benefit that will bring to your organisation.
Absolutely. And is it kind of I think they'd have to think about this is whenever we think kind of company and business, they always think, is there a commercial benefit to this? And I'm not saying all companies do this, but when you look from a business point of view, go, how does that help the bottom line? All these different things, which sounds quite callous when we talk about the passion that we have for this. But it's interesting how companies now are coming on board more. We have organisations like Made by Dyslexia, and obviously the incredible British Dyslexia Association that are doing all of this continuous awareness, and companies getting on board. But do you think it's companies funding within the companies, or do you think it's just not top of their priority list, or they don't think it's that important? I won't hold you to this. I was just just kind of.
I think there's a lack of understanding, there's a lack of awareness. And if I think back to my school days, when you think of the kids that were in your class that had dyslexia or SEN, they were seen as the ones that were perhaps going to achieve very much, and they were just sort of forgotten about, do that worksheet, rather than sort of helping them to understand what the rest of the class were doing. And I think if we're looking back to my time, and if we're the sort of leaders of the future, that's the mentality that a lot of CEOs and business leaders will have. They'll remember back to what it was like being in a class with a child with SEN as one of their classmates. But what we do need is for those people at the top of the organisations to make the change, to lead the change. And you might be lucky in an organisation where the CEO or the leader or the manager themselves is neurodiverse, or they have a family member that's neurodiverse, and they can apply that understanding within their organisation. But that's not a given. So we need people within organisations to look at their inclusivity, to look at how they make sure that everyone is welcome and everyone has that level playing field. And I'm seeing it a little bit more and more, but I think even and I remember, Darren, we did a webinar before with a company which I'm not sure we can name, but it was just a lunchtime drop-in where we talked about dyslexia, we talked about how to get help, access to help, either for them as individuals or for their children or family members. And I'm always willing to do something like that for an organisation that maybe has a neurodiverse member of staff and thinks, right, I really want to help them, but I don't really know where to start or where to go. And like you said, there's many charities, the British Dyslexia Association, Made by Dyslexia, that have websites that you can go to for information and guidance as an employer.
Yeah, and that's right. And yeah, that was myself and my partner. We, thank you so much for coming on to that. We like I said, we did these lunch and learns, and then it went into not just in the UK, it went to many different other countries as well. And that was really powerful, because what this individual did to start off with was first reach out, a few years ago, sort of pre-COVID. And said, I'm dyslexic and I want to help my organization. How do we do this? And that's the power. When you have someone on the inside, I guess, that wants to make a difference in the change, and then the organization back that person, and then you bring outsourced people that, can kind of talk and bring that knowledge to them. The power in that, and the work that, Kelly and I did, and, and the help from yourselves and others over a 3-year period it was massive to look at them now and what they're doing. So I would definitely implore, if you're listening to this and you're in an organisation, just start the ball rolling. And
it doesn't always have to be the neurodiverse person that steps up and goes, I want to lead this change within the organisation. It's just like if you have an LGBTQ plus group, it shouldn't necessarily be led by somebody that's their lived experience. It needs somebody that's passionate about change, that wants to make a difference, that's willing to listen to other people to get as much expertise as possible. I think anybody within an organisation that's got an interest in a specific area should put themselves forwards to lead and learn on those areas.
Absolutely. I just want to bring up Olive Hickman's comment, because just when we were talking, she put, I met a growing number of children this term who are landing in secondary school unable to write and feel instantly stupid. Teaching these creative, imaginative, visual thinking kids to visualize words changes all of this. And I think that's what you alluded to when you were mentioning about the fact of how we can change the way that we teach, in that sense, the change that we engage the student. Because I know from my kind of my dyslexia and my ADHD, I have to have a certain amount of interest in a certain topic. So if it's a book, I have to be interested in it. Normally sort of biographies about, Richard Branson and other bits and pieces. But I have to engage in that sense. Do you find that element? Because sometimes if you're engaged more, then naturally you're going to want to kind of take on that knowledge, and then it's just finding a way of teaching that person that, you know, in a way that kind of works for that individual.
Yeah, and I think it's partly that, but it's also the environment that you create around that individual. So there is no stigma at Moonhall about being dyslexic, because they're all dyslexic. They don't feel any different here. That's a major step forwards, and I recognise and appreciate that's not possible in every school setting, but making the whole school community, if you're not a specialist school, aware of neurodiverse conditions, what that actually means, what that actually presents within an individual, and what strategies, most importantly, are useful for that person. And I think when I think to my sort of Year 10 group that I've got at the moment, they're 14, but some of them have a reading age of 5. They really, really struggle to access the learning. Therefore, it's my responsibility to change the way that I do things, rather than expecting them to conform to the way that I just have done things for years. So I've really got to adapt my teaching style and the way that I deliver information, even things like movement breaks. Although all the children at Moonhall are dyslexic, we also have a very high percentage of children that have co-occurring difficulties, and ADHD is the secondary primary need. And I can tell just from looking at my class, are they focused? No. Right, let's go a walk, let's stand up, let's shake it out a little bit. I might change the sort of activity that I'm doing with them. We have wobble cushions, we have wobble seats, we have elastic bands around the bottom of the chairs so they can tap their feet off them. We have standing desks, and all these accommodations make things bespoke for that individual. And that's what you need to do. You have to make things individual for that learner so that you're getting the best out of them.
And you're absolutely right. It's so important, the environment. We touched on this with my last guests on my last Neurodiversity Stories, and they mentioned about the environment and working in open plan offices and the noise and how they have to kind of adapt. And it's no different in the educational side of it, where it could, if you're put in an environment for, say, an hour's worth of lesson, and you feel uncomfortable instantly as you go in, that could feel like a lifetime for that individual to be in there.
I think the research that's been done, and I don't know how they conducted this, or I can't cite the reference for it, so I apologise, but is about after 7 minutes, your brain naturally starts to switch off. So if you think of a lesson as roughly about 60 minutes,
wow,
then you're needing to change something within that lesson every 7 or so minutes to try and keep them engaged, to try and keep them focused. And sometimes, I had my Year 10 group last lesson yesterday. The productivity was not great. They were tired. They were really not engaging. So I gave them little short tasks. Right, okay, I went silence for the next 5 minutes and you've got to complete this. And then we stopped and we had a chat and we had a little laugh and we bonded as teacher, pupil, and that's really important as well. So yeah, teachers need to be able to be given the freedom by their senior leadership team to change the way that they do things within each classroom setting to make it accessible.
Absolutely. Michelle, I'd like to come on to a topic which is very exciting for me, and it's about AI.
Yes.
Now, I know there's so much talk about AI with things like ChatGPT, and there's other things out there as well. And it was really interesting because I was kind of an early adopter to the AI side of it, and then kind of ChatGPT came out, and it kind of then it really hit the news, and I was really interested to hear about how the educational system was being spoke about, but do you use AI within Moonhall? What's your kind of thoughts on this? And it'd be great to have a chat about this topic.
So I can't really sort of emphasize this enough. I am a massive fan of AI, using AI to help pupils with SEN. It is a complete game changer. I've attended some conferences on AI, I've attended webinars on AI, and I completely integrate that into my lessons. And all of my teachers here at the school have got it as a target in their curriculum plans for this year to implement AI within their lessons. And we run staff workshops, I've got an AI mentor within the school. But the way so using my Year 10 group this year as an example, where I've mentioned that their reading age is very low, and they really struggle with literacy, I do not want to do things for them. So initially in my first lesson, I had pupils saying, oh, can you read this for me? And in the kindest and nicest possible way, I said, yeah, I will read it for you, but I'm not going to read for you. in every lesson. You have to develop the independent skills that you need to access this, because you're not always going to be in an environment where you've got a teacher that's happy to help. You're going to go into college, you'll get a job, you might be standing at a bus stop and need to read a timetable. You need to develop those skills and strategies yourself. So we use various assistive technology devices, but AI has been transformational for my group. They are so excited about their lessons, and they're so excited because they can do it themselves. And it's exciting and it's fun. And probably for the first time, they feel empowered to actually take control of their own learning. So one of the things that ChatGPT, yes, we've been using that, not so much. One of the things that I've focused on is an app called Gamma app. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Oh, love Gamma. So what I do is I create the lesson and I embed the videos, the YouTube links. I've used it to generate AI images as well. And then I ask my pupils, so I'll post it in Teams. I'll ask them to then change my slides, make them better. They're not very good, so you need to make it better. There's too much text. How can you represent it differently? And then they have to create their own Gamma presentation based on mine. And then they have to post it in the Teams chat. So there's loads of steps involved with this, presenting, and they put it on the Teams chat with all the other pupils in the class as well, so they can all share ideas amongst one another. But that has been an absolute game changer. And because I put it on Teams as well, it has the immersive reader function. So even the instructions that I have with the pupils, they can click on immersive reader and have it read out to them. We also have on all of our pupils in year 9, 10 and 11 have their own individual laptops, so that they can set their desktops up the way that they like them, all their shortcuts, and it's very personalised to them. But we also have read-write software on all the laptops as well. And I've been teaching them about when you go onto a website, there's that capital A at the top with the little lines round about it. That'll read any website out aloud to them. Yeah. And it's just little tips and tricks that they weren't familiar with before, but I love it.
Well, thank you. I can tell from your passion that you're a big fan of AI, which is wonderful, because why do you think it's so? Why do you think, when the press start talking about and again, I won't hold you to this, but why the press kind of talk about AI and put education side of it, that they're fearful of it, or they think it's not going to help the student in the long run? Why do you feel that that's kind of?
Because there's a misunderstanding, and I guarantee anybody in the press or any teacher that says, I really hate AI, I'm not using it, has probably never tried it themselves. You need to have a go. You need to mess about with these things. I think a lot of people are worried about malpractice, plagiarism, that they'll just copy and paste. To be perfectly honest, I don't care about that in my lessons. I don't care if they're copying and pasting something from somewhere else. I want it to be accurate, but it's what you do with that information once you've collected it on AI. So I encourage my pupils then, once they've done their presentation, to create some flashcards, to create a poster. So I think for our children, it's getting started. AI allows them to get started, to formalize those thoughts and the headings that are needed, and then they must use that to go on and do other things. They can't just submit to me what it is that they've created using AI, because that wouldn't be very good.
But that's the most incredible way of doing this, because if we think about, if someone was to give me a blank piece of paper and ask me to do something, I always find difficult to get started on something. I don't know whether it's a talk or a presentation or anything else. For some reason, it's that starting. Once I start, I'm good to go. So in effect, what you're saying is that AI is kind of giving you this kind of tool to get you started. And I think it's wonderful that it's really interesting, actually. It's just got me thinking, because people think, actually, I'm just going to go onto, something, onto AI. I'm going to put a prompt in. I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to copy and paste and send it, which is no, because what we're saying is, you've got that prompt, you've got this thing. What can you build off of that? And I think that's really changed the whole kind of dynamics, really, around how we can utilize ChatGPT.
Yeah, and these are all the skills that are needed for the workplace. This is everything that's going to be really important for when these children leave school and want to get a job or go to university, whatever it is that they want to do. And I think just the fact that it just empowers them, it enables them to do things that aren't teacher-led. And a good lesson in a classroom should not be teacher-led. It should be the teacher sort of setting a task, setting the scene, allowing the pupils to get on with it and then facilitating that lesson with the support and the expertise of the teacher. So that's the way that I do things. And yeah, I think when my year 10 group first saw that their head teacher was going to be teaching them, there was probably a bit of trepidation there. They were a little bit nervous. We have the best time. There's such mutual respect there. And I've had emails from the parents saying, wow, they come home and they talk about science. They actually feel that they're accomplishing things now, whereas in the past they find it difficult. Because if you think of science, it's really tricky. All those Latin, Greek words, the vocabulary that's involved. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just promoting pupil independence, really. So as much as it's promoting AI, it's just independence, and I want them to be as independent as possible.
Absolutely, and that independence is absolutely crucial. And you know, you alluded to that as well when you mentioned about if you're on a bus stop, you're in a shop, you're in a workplace. These environments, you have to build up some of these soft skills, I guess, and which then progress into into life skills. To have that independence, and it does give you so much of a feeling of accomplishment when you do have that independence.
Yeah, and even for teachers, I'm not neurodiverse myself, but even just in terms of a time saver, using AI, getting yourself started on a task can be really difficult, as you've said. So I've written my school development plan using Gamma. I've written a booklet about the school, and it's just, yeah, it's such a time saver. It makes things much easier, and I think even for my own son who's dyslexic, he's been using it for revision, and he's using it really, really well. So I can't fault it at all.
And what do you feel the future then for AI within the educational side, or what would you feel you would like to see? Because obviously you've taken this and you've looked at it, assessed it, and go, okay, so what is it? I have a play around with it. We could use it for this, and then we could, add to it. What do you feel the future would look like for the AI side of it? Because there's no going away from it. It's in whether the child works with it in school, they still have access to on an evening, whether they're doing homework or something. So it's almost amazing that the schools are implementing this and taking ownership of this and thinking, we can do it this way. What do you foresee the educational side of it, how they could implement it, and what would that look like going forward?
Yeah, I mean, if I walked into a classroom, what would I want to see? What would I want that classroom to look like? I would want to see the pupils on task, engaged, doing whatever individually suited them. I don't want to see a teacher at the front of the classroom talking too much. So even the way that I teach, we sit around at one big table together. So I'm sat with them asking questions, and that's quite different. And it's similar around the school here, actually. I just think if you looked at every kid's computer, if you looked at what every kid was doing in the lesson, it should all be different. The kids should not all be doing the same things, because not everybody learns in the same way or wants to learn in the same way. And that's what I would want to see. I'd like to see a hive of activity and everybody doing individual little things. And I think that really is the way forward. I've attended an AI conference a couple of weeks ago, which was wonderful. And actually Moon Hall will be co-hosting an AI conference on the 10th of November with Cottesmore School, and the Department for Education are attending, and I hope they're listening and they'll take on board some of those things. And it really does take change makers, people in the world of education that will be happy to be a little bit bold, a little bit brave. It might not work, it might fail, but that's okay. We're going through that process. And you need individuals within a school that have an interest and a passion to make education better, whether that means with assistive technology, whether it's with AI, whether it's specialist teachers, different ways of doing things. You need people that are brave to be able to stand up and do these things. And there's another group of individuals that I'm part of called the Future Foundation, which I do know sounds like a sort of group of Avengers from Marvel. It is a group of head teachers, people involved in mental health wellbeing, investors, entrepreneurs, radio, BBC producers, and we all want to change education. We want to make education better because we recognise that it could be better and it should be better. So we're looking at unpicking everything, not just exams, but what time should kids start in the morning? How long should a school day be? What should a classroom look like? And it's just really great to be part of that team of individuals that are all experts in their field and sort of challenging and questioning, well, just because we've always done something that way, is that the right way to do things? And that for me is really motivational as well.
Absolutely spot on. And again, everything evolves. If we look at how we've adapted within the workplace, so to speak, you know, sort of pre-COVID, after COVID, and, you know, a lot of things with the remote working. So why can't we start really kind of, like you said, delving into the educational system and trying to understand how we can make it, you know, more accommodating for all parties. Michelle, we're running out of time.
Finished.
You're thinking, how long do we talk for? And yeah, it just absolutely flies by. But thank you so much for being for being a guest and taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And you know, like I said, there's so many amazing topics, and we could basically take one and just talk for ages around. But it's been incredible talking to you. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And as Moonhall does know quite a lot on dyslexia, we are always open to anybody that wants to find out more information. We hold SENCO days that are free to attend. We've got an assessment centre here. So please get in touch with the school if anybody does want to know any more about what we do.
And you beat me to it, because I was just about to say, how do people connect with yourself? But I will put all of the details on this. And please do connect with Michelle. And like I said, she does with the All-Party Parliament Group, the BDA, and obviously, you know, the incredible school of Moonhall. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend. And I will catch up with you very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Pleasure.
Thank you. So that was Michelle Catterson from Moonhall School. Thank you so much for everyone joining in, and thank you for your questions, your comments. If you do have any questions, further questions, and you're watching this on a replay, do you know, chuck a question in, and we will get back to you. Thank you so much to all of the viewers, our guests, and please tune in next week where we have another fantastic guest. Take care, guys, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.